right. All right, so I want you all to look at the questions on the screen here, right? I want you all, without Googling, right? I just want to test how much you guys know, right? Without Googling. Answer the questions. Just write down some answers of what you think each one is in your book. So for the first one, write down the question, and without Googling, write the answer in your books, right? Of course, feel free to send it on the chat. I'm going to read as much as I can, but I just want to see how much you all know about pregnancy and birth and dates, and not dates, but how much weeks are certain events during a pregnancy off the top of your head, right? So good luck and keep me updated. All right, so about the keyword, right? About how many weeks does a pregnancy last? Now, if I know some of y'all will still have Googled it, right? And if you happen to look online, you're going to see that different websites are going to give you slightly different answers. But a pregnancy usually lasts for 40 weeks. So that's like the average, right? So if it were up to me in the CSEC exam, I would put the 40 weeks, because that's the rough average of how much it's supposed to last. All right, so that one was easy. I think a lot of people would have known that offhand. Let's see the next one. What is a miscarriage? That's the green one. Now, a miscarriage is when you lose a baby before it's born, right? But you have to memorize this for the exam. A full pregnancy is 40 weeks. It's only considered a miscarriage if you lose the baby before the 20th week. Only before that, right? Obviously, if you lose the baby after the 20th week, which is about halfway through a full pregnancy, there's going to be a different term for it. And we will see that as we go through the different questions. Right. So which brings us to the red one. Well, what is a neonatal death? Right? Let's see. A neonatal death is when a baby dies in the first 28 days after birth. So in this case here, the baby has been fully born, right? So the baby is in the real world now. But if the baby dies within the first 28 days after being born, well, there's a medical term for that. That's neonatal death, right? And you have to memorize these time frames. So you have to remember the 28. Or for the miscarriage, you have to remember it's the before the 20th week. Otherwise, the examiner is not going to give you the full marks in the exam. Okay, great. Stillbirth, right? So what is a stillbirth? Let's see. A stillbirth is when a baby dies in the womb. So the baby has not been born as yet, but it's after the 20 weeks of pregnancy. So you all see the slight difference between a miscarriage and a stillbirth. A miscarriage is before the 20th week, and the stillbirth is after the 20th week, right? So you need to know the medical terms to obviously know the difference, the slight differences between the two, right? How about the purple one there, right? What is a congenital infection? Well, this is basically, okay, remember the mother is going to host the baby, right? She's giving birth to the baby. Isn't it possible that the mother herself can get an infection? And if the mother is infected, could she potentially pass that infection to the unborn baby? I mean, it makes sense, right? The baby is inside of her. So obviously, anything that the mother gets infected with, there's I would say a huge chance that the baby could also get infected. And when babies get infected, but by that method, like the mother is passing on the infection to the baby, well, now you know the official term for it. And the light blue one here, what is considered a low birth weight for a baby? Usually a baby that's less than 5 pounds, 8 ounces. Usually when you go to the hospital, they don't use kilograms. I have no idea why, right? Because I understand kilograms more than pounds, but they measure the weight of babies in pounds and ounces. So anything lighter than 5 pounds, 8 ounces, that's one measurement. It have no or in between here. 5 pounds, 8 ounces is one measurement, and anything lower than that is considered a light baby, or underweight baby. Take down everything on the screen. Let me know when you're finished, and we will move on. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's see what's next. All right, so we're going to talk a little more in depth, right? Some of you all already know some of these diseases, right? Obviously, some diseases for a pregnant mother is more dangerous than other diseases. Like if the mother just has like a regular infection, like a small flu or something, it mightn't affect the child, the unborn child, much, right? But it have a lot of STDs. Well, some people call it STDs. Other people might say STIs. For all purposes, it's basically the same thing. So last week we had discussed some of these things here. Do you all remember these diseases that we had mentioned? Chlamydia, gonorrhea, right? Sometimes you just have a bacterial infection and whatnot, right? Usually when you have a STD, it can actually affect the time frame, right? When the baby is born. Some of you might be confused about this term, preterm labor. That is basically when the baby is born early. Do you all remember from the last slide how much weeks a pregnancy or a birth is supposed to wait to take place? You all remember from the last slide? 40 weeks, right? But a lot of times, right? Nothing is perfect, right? The birth could sometimes this happen at 35 weeks. Sometimes in extreme cases, it will happen in 30 weeks, right? And of course, STDs can really, really affect in a negative way the time in which the baby is born, right? So that is what basically number one is saying. And you all know already what a miscarriage is. We discussed that on the slide before, right? So certain STDs like syphilis and HIV can increase the risk of a miscarriage. So that's when you lose the baby before even 20 weeks has passed, okay? Right. Do you all know what a fetus is? How much people don't know what a fetus is? Just in case, I don't mind explaining it. Right. Okay. So a fetus is the unborn baby. So well, when the baby is born and it comes out into the real world, well, you call it a baby, right? But if the baby is still inside the mother, right? It's called the fetus rather than a baby. Although we might still call it a baby, like might say you have a baby on the way, but an unborn baby is called a fetus. Okay. So I don't think there's too much to discuss here. I already summarized how STDs could affect the fetus. I try to use as small words as possible. If you take down everything on the screen, and of course, if there's anything you don't understand, let me know in the chat, and I'll see if I can talk it through at least. Right? So just to summarize, the STDs can affect the mother directly. It could affect the birth process itself, or it could directly affect the unborn child itself. All right, so we have a little small break. You all remember the genie, right? You all remember this guy here. So, all right, so let's see what this genie has to offer us here. I hope it's a good price that he has to offer us. Let's see. What do you all think about this wish that the genie is willing to grant us? Once per day, you can make any food appear in front of you. However, you must eat all that appears. If you don't, you will lose the power. How much of you all would like a prize like that? But it's only once per day. I think that's a pretty cool prize. I think every day I would I would wish for probably a zinger sandwich or something. I don't know. All right. So let's see what we have to do in order to win this prize. Let's see. All right. So here's the scenario. The genie presents a scenario to you. Aliens are attacking the Earth. And Iron Man, Wonder Woman, Hulk, and Aquaman ask you to fight with them. Who would you choose to fight with? Now, you gotta be honest with yourself here. I mean, your life at stake, the whole world at stake here. Who would you choose to fight with you? Who do you think you would feel the safest with? Who do you feel is the best bet to defeat these aliens? Be honest. It's not about who you like. It's about who you think is the right choice. Right? I think some of you are making the right choice. And I think some of you are just like a certain superhero. All right, let's see who had it correct. Let's see who had it correct. Let's see what the jar of truth says.
Let us see what the jar of truth says.
To me, it would either be Iron Man or Hulk. So once you choose either Iron Man or, you have to be realistic here, guys. My number one pick here would be Hulk, because he's just going to beat everybody up. Right? I've never seen Hulk lose a fight. All right, so if you all chose Wonder Woman or Aquaman, sorry, you all do not win the prize. Let's move on. All right. So a lot of people don't actually think about how diseases could affect the human population on a broad scale, you know. Like when somebody gets sick, right? For example, when it had the COVID outbreak, right? When it was in 2020 and it was really, really, really serious. I think that's probably the first time in our lifetime we saw how a disease could affect the whole planet. It's not just a thought about, oh, the person would get sick, I have to go spend money on medication. You all saw for yourself how it affected the world. It affected, did you all notice that COVID affected the prices of things? Did you all notice that the price of things began to go up? How much of you all noticed that? Like you heard your parents talking about it. You all also saw how it could affect education in a country. Yes, it could have affected education. You all saw for yourselves that when COVID came along, we could not go to school. You had to stay home and rely on what? Online classes and whatnot. So you saw how it affected education. You all saw how it affected the health infrastructure. The hospitals were filled. If you were sick with something else other than COVID, it was really difficult to get treatment in the hospital because the focus was on saving the lives of COVID victims, right? And we all know about the stigmatization. You have to be honest here, guys. When you all heard somebody, and not only for COVID, right? If you all hear somebody has HIV or AIDS, naturally, I mean, in a lot of cases, have you seen people avoid a person who has been infected with HIV or even COVID? Like there's a certain stigma against it. You put the person in a certain category, which is really, really, really bad. Like you avoid the person, you view them as probably not the same level of human that you are and whatnot. And we've seen that. I mean, but it takes time. Like people with HIV, I think if you went back 20 years and you heard a person had HIV, right? Or AIDS. Well, let's start with the HIV. And they were in a classroom. There would actually be protests about removing that person from the classroom. And there have been a lot of instances that really, really happened in life. But now 20 years later, we, as a society realize, HIV cannot be spread from just hugging somebody or shaking their hands and stuff like that. So we're more open to it, okay? But I'm not too sure if we have reached the point where y'all can let me know in the chat. If you all hear somebody has COVID, would you all avoid that person, or would you just simply put on your mask and still have a conversation with that person? Or how is it for you? Would you stigmatize that person? Or do you think you have reached the point with COVID where, it's not that serious to you, you know how to protect yourself against it? So, right? I have reached the point where I would just put on my mask and just, just step a few feet away if I know they have COVID, right? And I won't avoid the person directly. Right? That's just me. Right. And what about migration? Did you all know that whenever there are serious outbreaks of diseases and whatnot, that people actually leave the country? Right? Like persons they get up and leave. They go from one country and they move across borders to other countries. Okay? It has happened many times in the history of the earth, of the world, sorry, not the earth, the world. Okay? So take down everything on the slide here. This would be the topic. Discuss the impact of diseases on the human population, right? And let me know when you are finished. Right? All right, so let's see what this one is about, guys. Let's see what this one is about. The genie is here. Let's see what he has to offer us. All right, let's see. You would be made into the smartest person on the planet. I think that's a really great prize. Let's see what we have to do to get this. Let's go. Remember, if you will become the smartest person, and you could use this power for good or evil. So it seems that the genie isn't too sure if you are deserving of this gift. But he tells you to look at him and choose a color that's on him. So look at the genie, the whole genie, and choose a color, one color. Of course, the color that you choose will determine if you are going to use this power for good or evil. Only if you choose the correct color, then you will be granted the prize. Okay. Get some music. Get some music there. You only get one color. You only get one color to choose. You can't choose more than one.
Let us see what the jar of truth says.
Anybody chose the yellow? Anybody chose the yellow stripe on him here? Some people might call it gold. So if you said yellow or gold, right? You have it correct, right? The reason it's not blue, because the majority of the genie is blue. So if you chose blue, that means you are greedy, right? You chose the most popular color, so he immediately discarded you. All right. Let's move on, guys. Let's move on. All right, so let's talk a little bit about blood now, because we all know that your blood can be responsible for transmitting diseases around your body, right? And we also learned that actually a lot of STDs can be transferred through blood, right? Like HIV. If a person has a cut on their hand and they have HIV, and you also have a cut on your hand, and your hands touch, due to the mixture of the bloods, right? Of the blood, sorry, HIV could be transferred from one person to another person. So I just thought it would be a pretty good idea, since blood is involved in the transfer of diseases, which you know a little bit about, blood, okay? Now, we all know blood is a liquid, but blood has a lot of things dissolved in it. The liquid part of the blood, right? What I usually call, well, the liquid part, that is actually called the plasma, right? Now, the plasma part of the blood has many things dissolved in it. And this diagram is pretty straightforward, right? It has nutrients in it. So that blood inside your body right now, like your body, has things like glucose dissolved in it, proteins dissolved in it. It also has gases dissolved in it, like oxygen and carbon dioxide. You also find minerals, water, and you're going to find some waste. Anybody wants to give me an idea of what type of one example of waste that is found in your blood? It starts with the letter U. Example what? It starts with the letter U. We had mentioned it weeks ago. It starts with it, right? Urea, right? In case you all cannot read, oh, I want to hear this without looking back in your notes. Anybody wants to refresh my memory of what urea is? Let me hear you on the chat. Let me hear you. Because this is a very, very popular question in the exam. What is urea? Remember that there's this part of the body called the liver, right? So you have the liver. Your liver is obviously a very important part of your body, right? It's one of the biggest functions of the liver. It helps to remove toxins from your body. So if you eat something toxic, right, your liver will do the filtering. It will remove it. It's partially responsible for removing toxins, okay? But that still doesn't answer where urea comes from. It actually has to do with proteins. What happens, right? Protein is very useful. We need protein for building muscles and repairing our bodies and whatnot. But isn't it possible to eat too much protein? And when that happens, right? When your body digests or eats too much protein and your body has no use for that extra protein, like it can't even store the protein, what it will do, it will take the protein, the liver will take that protein and break it down into something called what? Urea. And what will happen? The urea will be sent to your kidneys, because the urea is now a waste product, because, you know, the body is trying to get rid of the excess protein. And the urea goes to your kidneys, and then from your kidneys, it goes to your bladder. And once it reaches your bladder, well, you go to the washroom after that to get rid of the urea, right? But the main takeaway from this is that your liver is the one that produces the urea. And it's because it's trying to get rid of the excess protein in your body, right? So if you look back in your notes, you will see that somewhere in your notes, okay? So that's the plasma part of the blood, the things that it contains. Well, you all know white blood cells and something called platelets. I'll just quickly refresh your memory. That only makes up 2% of your blood. Your white blood cells are responsible for what? Fighting off diseases. Remember last week I said those are like the soldiers in your body. Whenever something like a virus or a bacteria tries to invade your body, your white blood cells fight against that. Anybody knows what platelets are? Platelets. What are platelets? Anybody remembers? I had briefly mentioned it 2 weeks ago. Just a brief mention I had made. You all ever realize when you get cut? Let me say you get cut on your hand here. Doesn't the bleeding stop on its own in most of the cases? Like, it's not a real huge cut, right? But let me say somebody just takes a razor blade and you just slice your hand by mistake, right? Won't the cut naturally heal on its own? You just see a kind of scab start to form on it. That's the platelets. The platelets, it's like, it's there so you to heal the cut, right? Without that, you could die, right? And you have some people who don't have platelets or defective platelets. I don't know if you all know somebody like that, right? I know one person like that. Like if the person gets cut because something is wrong with the platelets in their blood, their hands or cut cannot heal on its own. It's very, very scary. I'm talking about if you get a paper cut, like if that person gets a simple thing as a paper cut, that wound will keep bleeding, bleeding, bleeding until that person reaches the hospital. It's really scary. And of course, the hospital will do a special procedure to help it heal, but the person cannot heal on their own. Scary stuff, right? And then about around 38% of your blood is made up of something called red blood cells. And I believe that I had told you that the red blood cells are responsible for carrying oxygen around the body, right? So take down everything on, for those who don't know how a red blood cell looks, this is how it looks. It's like, it's something like you make a dough for a roti and you press down the middle, right? The official name for that shape is called a biconcave disc. Think of it as like you're making bread and you have the dough on the table and you take your hand and you hit it in the middle. So you indent the middle of the dough. Right. So let me know when you finish with everything and we will move on. Okay. Why is blood red? Right? Have you all ever noticed that that when you buy supplements or whatnot, right? You all ever realize that when you read behind a supplement, it has something called iron, like iron, right? That's something very, very important to have in our diet, right? The reason is red blood cells, right? Red blood cells actually have something called iron. It has a special protein in it. And the name of that special protein is hemoglobin. But you cannot make hemoglobin without iron. The iron is what actually gives the blood its red color. Now, I know what you all might be saying, right? Iron is not reddish or brownish in color, right? Like pure iron, like if you go in the hardware and you buy a nice sheet of iron, what color is iron? Isn't it that kind of silvery grayish material, right? But doesn't iron have the ability to be reddish in color? What about when something rusts? When iron rusts, doesn't it become reddish in color? So iron has the ability to be what in color? Reddish in color. It's just a matter of the conditions it's existing under. So that is why human beings and a lot of mammals, well I think all mammals have red blood, because to make the hemoglobin, you need iron. So, which brings us to the question, right? Are there any animals out there without red blood? What about a crab? What color is a crab's blood? Anybody knows? What color is a crab's blood? It's not red. I guarantee you, a crab's blood is not red. It's bluish in color, right? It's a kind of bluish. It depends on how the sunlight hits it and how much light it has in the room, right? But a crab blood is bluish. And let me explain why it is bluish. You see, crabs don't use iron in their blood cells. Instead, they use copper. Copper is another type of metal. And copper has the ability to be blue under certain conditions. So at least you know that now, right? Human beings and mammals, we have iron in our proteins, in these special proteins. But crabs and other crustaceans and whatnot, they don't use iron. They use copper for their special protein. Okay. Right. The examiner is not going to ask you about crabs. I'm just telling you that for, I just thought it was interesting. That's all. Let me know when you guys are finished. Let's move on, guys. Let's move on. Let's see what the genie has to offer us today. I know you all will love this present. A robot that will do everything for you, including your homework, and of course, what everybody hates to do, clean the house. All right, so let's see what we need to do in order to win this. I would actually want this myself. Oh, this is a good one. How much of you all know that if you discover a comet, let's say you buy a telescope, right? And you begin to, search the skies. If you are the first person to see a certain comet, did you all know in real life, you get to name the comet? How much of you all know that? Whoever spots the comet first, actually in real life, gets to name it. All right, that's actually a real thing, right? I want you all to tell me what you all would call a comet if you happen to discover one, right? What would you all call that comet? Well, that's that one. What would you all call it? Let's see what you come up with. Somebody say comet Trini. Stardust, right? Comet Gold. Sunbest. All right, great. Right. So I want you all to count the amount of letters in the name and determine if it's even or odd. Count the amount of letters and tell me if it's a odd or even amount of letters, right? You all know what even is, like 2, 4, 6, 8. Odd is like 3, 7, Right. All right, so let's see. If it's odd, you win the prize. If it was even, you did not win the prize. All right. Sorry, I was running low on idea, guys. When they're coming up with these genie skits, it is run low on ideas. All right. So let's move on, guys. Let's move on. Somebody said the most, in fact, the most normal name I got was Comet Genie. All right. Malaria. Anybody ever heard about this disease called malaria? Well, I'm saying it like a foreigner, but it's malaria, right? All right. Did you all know malaria kills like literally thousands upon thousands of people every year, right? As far as I know, right? I mean, the statistics could change. It kills the most amount of people. It's the #1 killer of persons in the world. And what's the name of the insect that's usually associated with the spread of malaria? What's the name of the insect? Starts with the letter N. Right. The mosquito. Right? Great. So what's good? First of all, what madness is Jimmy talking about there? It have a woman coughing next to him. Do you think a person can get malaria like that? If a person just coughs on you? I don't think so. I don't think malaria spreads like that. In fact, right, the malaria spreads via mosquitoes, and mosquitoes are known for sucking what? Your blood, right? So malaria has something to do with blood. Blood needs to be transferred from one person, from the infected person, to the other person for them to get malaria, right? Now, in case they ask you in the exam, I think I only saw this come one time in the exam, like going through the past papers and whatnot, right? The name of the organism itself that's responsible for malaria, right, is the protozoan, right? No, sorry, I made a mistake there. The name of it is Plasmodium. That's the name of the bacteria itself. Now, a protozoan is a one-celled organism. So any organism that's just made up of one cell is called a protozoan. A plasmodium is just one type or one example, right, of a protozoan. But the name of the actual bacteria itself, the name of the organism that's responsible for malaria, is the one that I'm underlining many times there. Okay. So, over time, people have, I had a picture of a mosquito here. I didn't realize something was blocking the mosquito, right? A lot of people have tried to figure out where malaria came from in the first place, right? Like, who or what was the first organism to have malaria, and how did it begin to infect humans? One theory is, right, now of course this is debatable, because if you go online you'll hear many different theories, but so far the most common one is that it was thought that malaria, this organism here, the plasmodium, had infected a gorilla. As far as they could tell, a gorilla was the first organism to be infected by malaria. And then the mosquitoes would bite what? The gorillas, and of course, the mosquitoes will then go and bite who? Human beings. And that is how they terrorize. That's what they terrorize. I say that word again, tight tongue here, right? The theory is that is how malaria begin to affect humans. I don't know if you all agree with that, or you think that is some crazy conspiracy theory. I don't know, right? So they blame the gorilla for it. Now, you all see this word here, a vector. Let me explain what a vector is. I used to be confused about that word when I was in school, right? Because the word vector seems, kind of, it makes it seem complicated. A vector is just something that helps transmit the disease. For example, for the malaria to reach the human being, who is the vector in this case? Who is the one transferring it from the infected organism to the other organism? The mosquito, right? Right. A vector is like a mailman. So somebody had a very good description here. A mailman just is the in-between person. He just delivers the message from one party to a next party. Okay? So don't let the word vector get to you, right? The vector is just the messenger, the delivery guy. You don't have too much to take down here. All you need to know is this circled part over here, right? The name of the virus, not the virus, the bacteria that's responsible for malaria. Like I said, I only saw that question come once in the exam. Let me know when you're finished, and we will move on. All right, so here I just, I just worded it a little bit better for you guys. So malaria is a tropical disease caused by a protozoan. I even mentioned in this note here, what is a protozoan? It's just an organism with one cell in it, right? The parasite needs this is very important, right? Only the female mosquitoes can transmit it, right? Only the female mosquitoes can transmit it. So I forgot to mention that, but I have it over here. And of course, there are many different types of mosquitoes, right? So The type of mosquito or the category of mosquitoes is called the Anopheles, right? Feles, sorry, not Feles, Feles, right? To act as the vector. So not all mosquitoes can transmit malaria, right? It has to be female, and the type of mosquito, the category of mosquito, has to be the one starting with the letter A there, right? Well, someone asked, how do you know a female mosquito from a male, right? Did you all know that male mosquitoes don't actually bite you? It's only the female mosquitoes that is bite. How much of you all knew that? Only the female mosquitoes is feed on blood. Male mosquitoes don't. Right? I know I'm not an expert in mosquitoology, if that's a real word. So I just know the basics in mosquitoes, right? That the females is the one that, when they get bite, that's the females, right? The males, they don't take blood. All right, so I know some of you are groaning in the background already. Look at this huge table that you have to take now. So here are 3 common diseases, right? We discussed malaria already, right? You all know about dengue. Dengue is another type of disease that's spread by mosquitoes, right? Great. And anybody know about leptospirosis? Ever heard about that one? It's usually associated with the urine of rats, right? It can be very deadly, right? And I've known a couple of people who have died from leptospirosis. Now, it's very important to know, right, that whenever I say that rats spread leptospirosis, right? I mean, let's clear something, and with all animals. Like every time you get bite by a mosquito, do you think it will always have malaria? Or do you think it will always have dengue? Obviously, the answer is no. And I know you're probably thinking I'm crazy for trying to clarify this, right? But not every single mosquito out there is carrying malaria and dengue, right? Not all of them, right? It's just a minority that will have it. And when they bite you, they will infect you. The same thing goes for rats, right? Not all rats carry the disease leptospirosis, right? Just a certain number of them are infected by it. And also, I just want to point out, rats are not the only animals that are responsible for leptospirosis, despite what news articles say. You can get it from just coming in contact with contaminated soil, the water or urine of animals, such as, look at this, cattle, there's cows, I mean, rodents is rats, but pigs and dogs also have the potential to carry what? Leptospirosis. Okay, so I don't have too much to explain on this table here. I'm sorry about this, guys, but you're going to have to take down this table and learn it off by heart. If you see anything in the table that you're not too sure about, just let me know in the chat and I'll try my best to explain it. See what this genie is up to. Oh, I don't know what you're thinking. I had predicted to have a little break over here, but apparently Jimmy is wanted for Jimmy's full name is Jimmy Lalping, apparently. And he's an escaped felon or something like that. All right. So okay, well, guys, I will give you that 5 minutes break now. I will give you that. I forgot I had predicted a 5 minutes break, right? So I'll see you all here at 10:40. All right, so here's a little bit of some repeated stuff. I just worded it a little bit better for you guys in case the question comes in the exam. The first one here is a vector. I think I already explained what a vector is. The vector is like the middleman, like a mailman. He's the one responsible for transmitting the disease or carrying the disease from the infected organism to the new organism, right? And I already mentioned that a vector doesn't always have to be a mosquito, right? It could be a tick, it could be a fly, it could be fleas, it could even be lice, right? So there isn't too much to explain here, right? Obviously, vectors can affect human health. Give it a read and take it down. And if there's anything you don't understand in these 4 points, I'm going to take a read through too. And if I see anything that's worth explaining, I will do so. All right, so let's see what the next slide is about here. I think, oh, we have a little cutscene here. All right, guys, we're coming close to the end of class, right? So I think it's almost 11 o'clock, but I will go back to that slide just now, right? Oh, we already did this one. Sorry, guys, this is a repeat of that one. I'm going to see what the next slide is about just now. All right, before we actually close off class today, this is a diagram you all need to learn off by heart. How much of you all remember this from primary school? I remember this from standard 3 or standard 4, where you had to learn off the life cycle of a mosquito. Yeah, it comes back in your exam, in your CSEC exam. So that's a very, very, very good piece of news, right? So how it works, it starts off, I mean, this is pretty basic, right? It starts off with eggs, then the eggs grow into something called a larva. From the larva, it grows into something called a pupa, and then it changes into an adult what? Mosquito, right? I need for you all to draw this for me, right? And you need to learn this off by heart for the exam. The examiner doesn't make you draw the whole thing from scratch, but he might draw a piece of the diagram and you have to complete it for him, or they will draw the entire diagram and you have to label which one is the adult stage, which one is the egg stage, which is pretty easy. All right. So this is the last thing we're going to be doing in class today, right?